need to review? All right. I'm going to go ahead, since Commissioner Ball is on his way, and we'll come back to him and have Jason Hyatt join us for the America 250 committee update. I see we've got our flags this afternoon. Thanks, Jason. It's good to see you.
Good afternoon. Nice to see everybody. So I'm joined by Glenn Stack, who will have a lot more information to share about America 250 NC than I will, but I thought I would kick things off for you. You may remember several months ago, Glenn and I presented to the board for approval to move forward with our Buncombe County NC committee, and since that time, the committee has done a lot of great work. So we're here to share a little more information with you about our spring program, what's going to roll out through the remainder of 2026. Just as a quick refresh, America 250 NC is a program of the North Carolina Department of Natural and Cultural Resources. It's one of our state departments that provides a lot of support and materials for libraries, cultural heritage sites, the zoo, the aquarium. We've had some of their exhibits already at the libraries right now. And this will just give you kind of a recap of what Buncombe County has done so far. So the formation of the official Buncombe County Committee allowed the committee to apply for and receive $10,000 in grant funds administered through the state. And those are some of the traveling exhibits that have been working their way across the state. We've got one right now at Pack Library that's Making Our Voices Heard, which is North Carolinians and the fight for civil rights. And then Glenn will tell you a little bit more about some of the events that are happening. This shows you what the event calendar looks like on the A250NC website. So we're making sure to plug in anything that's happening in Buncombe County so that anybody looking for an A250 related event can find it easily. We've moved through several phases here of the overview. We are now in the encouraging and highlighting programs portion, which is what you'll hear more about from Glenn. Just to highlight a little more about what the library's involvement has been, we're kind of the lead agency for this as the liaison to the Buncombe County Committee. Our Special Collections Department, located at Pack Memorial Library, hosted a full-day symposium back on February 27th. We had fantastic turnout for that. And the exhibit that I mentioned, Making Our Voices Heard, is on display through the end of this week at Pack Memorial Library. The 6 libraries that you see listed there all have pop-up exhibits about Buncombe 250 that encourage people to connect with online resources, explore Buncombe County, visit different cultural sites, and also view some of the online exhibitions that the state has put together. So you can find those at those 6 libraries. Look for the big pop-up banner, the A250 flag, which looks very similar to the flags that Glenn has provided for you. Something else that the library is doing, our role, as we always are for any topic, is to provide information and resources to the entire community. And so for folks in the community who may be planning their own A250 events or doing research or want to dig in a little deeper to our history, we invite them to connect with the library. We've got a number of interesting primary sources that are unique to Buncombe County specific history, especially in our Special Collections Department. We view that as an ongoing role for the library throughout the duration of this program and, in perpetuity. So on that note, I will toss it over to Glenn.
Great. Well, thank you again for allowing us to be before you. It was just shy of a year ago that we asked for your permission to establish a Buncombe County 250 committee, principally so that we could bring the resources from the state here to Buncombe County, and that every citizen, every visitor of Buncombe County would find access and understand and express their own spirit of patriotism as they see fit. We were able to receive a $10,000 grant because of your support. The state provided a grant as one of almost 100 committees across the state. So I think they're at 90, or the low 90s in terms of participation across the state. So we were able to, with that grant, to host listening sessions across the county and ask folks how they would like to commemorate this 250th. Of course, items that are typical to any commemorative event, tree plantings. We're going to talk about that here in a moment. Educational programs and resources for the schools. July 4th events, of course, concepts that are being rolled out across the country on July 5th for a Great American Potluck. Of course, art being important here to Buncombe County. Tourism, the faith communities and the expression of the freedoms that we have. Days of service and giving back. And then, of course, food. So where we landed, we want to give you a brief update. The Beyond the Liberty Tree program is a 1 to 250 multiplier. We have led, this is an all-volunteer initiative, and we have no money other than the $10,000 provided by the state, which paid for the listening sessions and some support prompt money for programs. So we're raising funds by planting trees all across North Carolina, led by this committee. And these trees will be supporting not only local commemorations, but for every tree planted, we've asked those parties to donate at least $250 to charities here in Buncombe County, the American Chestnut Foundation, Greenworks, Mountain True, and others to support reforestation here in Western North Carolina. I'm pleased to say we're almost to 25 participating counties now. We're receiving anything from $2,500 to $250 per application. So really making an impact here in Western North Carolina. We also ran an artist competition. We wanted a local artist of Buncombe County to be showcased in the creation of the commemorative plaques that go, again, all across the state of North Carolina. And this is Jeffrey here, Buncombe County, and A&R Engraving. And that program is helping to pay for, as we mentioned, we wanted to make available the state's programs here to Buncombe County. Jason and the library system have just been tremendous. They occupy 6 sites where you can go and find more resources, find out about the programs and the curriculum that the state has put out. We also have this in other locations, the Dry Ridge Museum, the Southern Highlands Craft Guild, the Swananoa Valley Museum, YMI Cultural Center, and the Vance Birthplace, and others that you can find out more about America 250 NC. And again, this is 250 years of American history, not 250 years ago. And so working with each of those sites to rotate what folks can find out not only there, but online and at home to find out again about North Carolina's role in our 250 years. The last piece I'll mention, Jason had shown that calendar of events that's run by the state. So any program that's put on here in North Carolina is posted to that calendar. But here in Buncombe County, all we can do is encourage folks that are already doing things to brand them toward the 250th and to consider the themes that the state has sponsored. These are just a sampling of some of the moments throughout the calendar this year, from days of service to July 4th. The committee will be present at the ball game on July 4th and will be presenting colors and some other information. We're right at time here, but we thank you for, again, helping the committee to be established. We wanted these resources to be present here. We're thankful also that the county is planting a tree in Pack Square and participating in the program at large. Happy to take any questions that you have.
And I'll just mention that Buncombe County Public Libraries is planning some type of culminating event around July 4th. It won't be on July 4th, but that will involve our special collections, our youth services department. Still working out the details there, but we want to celebrate the planting of the new Liberty tree near the courthouse, also draw people's attention to the importance of the reforestation efforts and connect them with local history resources. So stay tuned for more details on what that event looks like happening with the library.
All right. Thank you. Jason, thanks to you and your team, and thank you as well. Lots of great events to look forward to over the next few months.
Thank you. It's an honor.
Commissioner Ball, you are up next. We reversed the agenda just slightly. You have the roadless rule resolution.
Yeah, great. So I don't think this will take 10 minutes, but given our process for new resolutions, I'm bringing this forward. And this is really something that came from the community request from another number of our partners within the environmental community. This year, in the vein of celebrating anniversaries, is the 25th anniversary of the roadless rule. The roadless rule was a rule put in place by the Forest Service in 2001. It has protected over 52 million acres of forests, keeping them pristine and free from roads. We had a number of folks in the community that reached out and wanted to celebrate the 25th anniversary. Our partners in the Forest Service do a great job of managing these areas, and studies show that everyone in Buncombe County is really concerned about wildfires. Recent studies show that wildfires are actually 4 times more likely to occur within 50 meters of a road. And so we thought this was a great opportunity to celebrate the roadless rule. And so there's a resolution before you to put that on the agenda this evening and celebrate the roadless rule. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you for bringing it forward, and I do definitely appreciate calling out our forestry partners who do a great job for us here in Buncombe County, and we appreciate them so much. And I thought it was really good how you pointed out also because I think some people, the wildfires are definitely on our minds, and you made a point in there that should there need to be a road specifically to help with wildfires and everything, that is still allowed within that, and I thought that was a really good point to bring up as well.
That's one of the great things about the roadless rule. It does allow for the Forest Service to ensure responsible management of our forests within those areas when needs come up. And one of the great things about this as well is that, we have over 2,000 acres of roadless area in Buncombe County in the Craggy Mountains, but also beyond our borders, it protects our watershed. So in surrounding counties, those roadless areas really protect the Mills River watershed, which helps for clean water here in Buncombe County as well.
And also that reminded me of something else in there that you brought up, also how it impacts our economy, especially our outdoor recreation economy. With, I think you mentioned trout fishing and climbing, mountain biking. I think you mentioned several different ways that it has a very positive impact on our community.
Yeah. I used to work with the Appalachian Trail Conservancy, and one thing I worked really closely with the Forest Service. One thing I was struck by is that even along the entire route of the Appalachian Trail, there's not a lot of places that you aren't that far from a road. Even in the 100-mile wilderness, it's really important that we protect that for future generations because, as we just spoke about, part of what makes our country great is that it's so wild and scenic and majestic, and this helps contribute to that.
Are there further questions, commissioners?
Do we have a sample of the resolution?
Yeah, it's on the briefing agenda, and yeah.
Are we good? All right, I believe we have
supportive.
consensus. All right, so this evening at 5 o'clock, I will ask for a motion to add this to the agenda. Great, thank you. What'd you say?
No brainer.
No brainer. All right. All right, thanks you all. Thank you, Commissioner Paul.
No, the consent agenda.
I was gonna, is it on the new business agenda?
It is not.
So this evening, I will ask for a motion to add it to new business. Yep. Or do we, if we have consensus, we could put it on consent.
Oh, yeah. I'm happy for it to be on new business.
You like for, okay,
That's great.
that's fine. I think that's fair. Okay, so we will add it to new business this evening with a motion. All right, Lacey Hoyle is with us with a COC quarterly update and an update on Within Reach, and I believe Emily Ball from the City of Asheville is joining her. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Nice to see you all. I am here with a quarterly update on continuum of care, and I am happy to have Emily Ball from the City of Asheville's Women's Strategy Division here with me today. She and her team act as the lead agency for the continuum of care.
Sorry. Oh, okay, thanks. Emily and her team act as the lead agency for the continuum of care, and she is going to share some updates on Within Reach recommendations and their alignment with the COC strategic plan. So I'm going to get us started by going through our point-in-time count results for this year. You all probably remember that the point-in-time count is a census of folks who meet the federal definition of literal homelessness. So that's folks who are staying in emergency shelters, in transitional housing, or who are unsheltered in our community. This is a HUD-mandated snapshot count that is conducted every year in our community, typically within the last 10 days of January. This year, we did get federal permission to move the count to February because of the winter storm and extreme cold weather that we were experiencing for when the count was originally scheduled. This count covers all of Buncombe County, so City of Asheville, and then all municipalities in the county. And this year it was conducted on February 10th and February 11th. So the evening of February 10th, there was a street count. And then on the 11th, there were surveys being distributed at service provider locations, as well as encampment outreach conducted by our outreach professionals in the community. We had 137 volunteers this year, so I think that's more than last year. We continue to grow that number every year, which is awesome. And this year is the first year that the count was managed by the COC's System Planning and Implementation Committee with support from lead agency staff. So before I get in depth on the data, I like to show this overview that just kind of generally shows trends in our point-in-time count. So the blue in each column represents the portion of the count that accounts for unhoused individuals who are staying in emergency shelter, transitional housing, and it also accounts for shelter overflow beds and code purple beds that may have been utilized the night of the count. You'll notice that we did add beds from 2023 to 2024, and then unfortunately we lost some capacity, largely due to the loss of ABCCM's Veterans Restoration Quarters from Helene from 2024 to 2025. So the blue line that you see represents the number of beds available in the community. And you can see that for the past few years, we have not had enough beds available in the community on the night of the count for the number of folks that we ended up counting. That data is not yet available for this year, the number of beds available. We anticipate that it will be released in May or shortly thereafter, but I think it's safe to assume, based on our experiences with Code Purple and just kind of what we know generally about our capacity in the community, that we likely did not have enough beds total for the total number of folks experiencing homelessness in our community this year either. So here's our preliminary look at the results from the point-in-time count. So you can see that I've listed last year's numbers here for y'all, as well as the change in values from last year to this year. So the number of folks in emergency shelter on the night of the point-in-time count was lower than last year. This number is typically very reliable because we're counting folks that are entering shelters. Because the count was rescheduled to February, it was unseasonably warm the night of the point-in-time count this year. And so although we had called Code Purple for the nights before, we did not meet the temperature parameters that night to call Code Purple, and so we didn't. So that means that there were 95 Code Purple beds that were not online the night of the point-in-time count that very likely would have been utilized. And so that emergency shelter number is a little bit lower than I think it probably would have been if it had been a Code Purple night, which it was in years past for the night of the point-in-time count. Transitional sheltering or transitional housing, you can see that we have a pretty significant increase. That is in part because the Veterans Restoration Quarters is slowly bringing their capacity back online. And also because this year we were able to count the Covenant Village out in Fairview. So that is a transitional housing. It's a community of RVs that they have set up on their property for families who were displaced by Hurricane Helene. And so that's counted as transitional housing, which is why you see that reflected in this number. So we can see a slight increase in our unsheltered count from this year, but I also want to share that this year, one thing that's different is that we had a strong partnership with the Big Ivy Community Center. So in years past, we have done surveys out in Barnardsville, but those have been folks from Asheville coming out to that community to do surveys, and this year, the folks out at Big Ivy conducted the surveys. So we were able to get a lot more surveys completed because that community, those folks know the folks working at Big Ivy and feel more comfortable talking with them. So we jumped from, I think it was 16 surveys last year to 41 out at Big Ivy this year, and most of those folks are experiencing unsheltered housing. And I also want to just share that out of that unsheltered number, 87 individuals, or 26% of that unsheltered count, reported that they are experiencing unsheltered homelessness because of Tropical Storm Helene. So you can see here that our total for this year is 824 people. That represents 733 households. And then I'm going to briefly go through some of the demographic information. So starting with self-reported race and ethnicity, you can see here that we've included the numbers from the 2024 American Community Survey, as well as percentages for each category represented in the 2025 and 2026 point-in-time counts. Overall, these numbers did not change dramatically from last year to this year, which is why I'm showing you all percentages rather than the raw numbers. But I do want to just point out, as we've talked about in years past, that we continue to see some of the same disparities that we've been seeing. So African American folks experiencing homelessness, that number has increased again this year and is a disproportionate representation to the number of African Americans in that 2024 American Community Survey. Similarly, with American Indian, Alaska Native, or Indigenous folks, and our Hispanic and Latinx only populations. So we've talked about this. This information was shared at the COC membership meeting in March, and we did talk about it a little bit at that meeting. A high-level overview of this data was shared with the board, and we use this data in our work in the COC to kind of inform our planning efforts, including looking at some of these disparities. Moving on to self-reported gender, we continue to see a disproportionate number of males who are experiencing homelessness in our community. That is a nationwide trend that we are seeing echoed here in our local community. That number did drop a little bit this year, and we see a slight increase in in the number of females in the community who are reporting homelessness.
Yeah.
Sure.
In the male, when we look at the male population, is that influenced a lot by veterans?
I don't know that I can confidently answer that question.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. We have a disproportionate number of veterans experiencing homelessness in our community compared to the national stats. And much of that is related to a VA medical center that's very good. And partly ABCCM's Veterans Restoration Quarters, which is a VA-funded transitional housing project, is very large. So I do think we have more veterans than most communities, and more male veterans specifically.
Thanks.
All right, and then I wanted to share some information about self-reported age. You can see here that there's a significant increase in the number of folks under 18 experiencing homelessness who were counted in the point-in-time count this year. We think that's likely due to the representation from the families both at Covenant Village and probably also at Big Ivy as well. We also do know that no one under 18 who was counted in the point-in-time count was unaccompanied, which is obviously a good thing. All of those folks were parts of households with adults. And then the other thing to note here is that we do see an increase in young adults, ages 18 to 24, experiencing homelessness as well.
I'm curious on the under 18 if there's a way to confirm and verify. That might be the right word, with the McKinney-Vento coordinator at Buncombe County Schools? Because those numbers do seem quite high compared to, I think, what we hear from the McKinney-Vento coordinators.
Well, I mean, I will say that the McKinney-Vento coordinators are reporting numbers that are certainly not as high as last year right after Helene, but still, I would say, somewhat elevated. So although I don't know that we have a way to verify, because the point in time count does not collect names or anything like that. So there's no real way to verify that these families are McKinney-Vento families, but I would say that this represents sort of what we're seeing with the McKinney-Vento liaisons as well.
Thanks, I appreciate that, Lucy.
Yeah. All right, and then wanted to share household and geographic information. You can see that increase in the number of families here too. Again, likely that is, at least in part, and I would say probably in large part due to those folks at Covenant Village and the folks out at Big Ivy. And again, that is also consistent with what we're hearing from providers and from McKinney-Vento liaisons, just that the number of families experiencing homelessness and housing instability has increased. I also wanted to share, as I did last year, just kind of a rough estimate regarding the geographic areas that are represented in the point in time count. So the survey routes that, that volunteers follow don't exactly follow city limit lines. So I've done some estimating here, so I just want to qualify that. These are estimates based on those maps to try to get some idea of percentages. As was the case last year, most of the surveys were collected in city limits, although that percentage did decrease a little bit. And you can see here that, again, Barnardsville had an increase, as well as Fairview, which is where the Covenant Village is located. And then last but not least, wanted to share some information about those self-reported characteristics. We see that jump in youth ages 18 to 24 again here, as well as an increase in adult survivors of domestic violence. I just want to remind everyone that these are self-identified and self-reported, and the COC uses this information in context of our planning efforts. It helps inform both our current services as well as providing information for us for planning for services in the future. Questions about the point in time count before I move on to a couple of other updates for us?
And the youth, the ages 18 to 24, why do you think we're seeing such a jump in that age group?
I think that's a really good question. I don't know that we've talked about that at the COC level too much. I think that may be something that we need to do some investigating on with our providers.
Okay, thank you.
I think that is a bit of a national trend on both ends. I think we're seeing a larger number of older folks and a larger number of younger folks who are entering homelessness.
Are these unduplicated categories? So for example, we could have a youth that's accounted for, but also have a youth that accounts for a serious mental illness. Okay.
Right.
Before we move on, I just want to say thanks to the commissioners who helped with the point in time count that evening, and to our staff as well for taking time to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, and then I wanted to just share some couple of other quick updates before I turn it over to Emily. So within the last quarter, the COC board has welcomed a couple of new board members. First, Erica Waltamada, who is the deputy director for the Asheville Downtown Improvement District, has joined in the business community representative seat. And then Assistant City Manager Jay Dundas is currently sitting in the City of Asheville's appointed seat in an interim capacity. And then I had previously shared with you all that the COC was undertaking a process in collaboration with the Housing Authority to reinstate some local admissions preferences. So there was an RFP process to identify providers who would participate in that effort within the last quarter, and Helpmate, Homeward Bound, and Safe Shelter were identified as participating providers. I think that Emily is going to share a little bit more about this during her portion of the presentation, so little bit more info forthcoming. I also had previously shared with you all that the COC has been working to collaboratively address the need for some increased support in West Asheville. And to that end, the board approved a proposal for collaborative street outreach. It's the West Asheville Street Engagement Team. So there's several partners involved in that effort. Safe Shelter, the Asheville Fire Department's REST team, Mutual Aid Wellness Collective, and Counterflow's clinical team. So that is up and running, I believe, at this point, yeah. And then additionally, the board has initiated a collaborative effort to engage funders in our area in the hopes of talking about some urgent and somewhat emergent funding needs that we know we're going to be presented with in the coming months, as well as some long-term planning for the future, in the hopes of expanding available funding and increasing our partnership together to try to make sure that we don't lose capacity and figure out how we can increase our system's capacity as well. And then we continue to approve additional members for established committees and work groups. The applications for committees are open on a rolling basis, so we are accepting those and helping folks get plugged into the right spot as often as we can. And then last but not least, I wanted to share some brief funding updates. So you may remember when I was here for my last update that there was some new direction in terms of HUD COC funding, which is our largest source of federal funding for permanent supportive housing and rapid rehousing for domestic violence survivors. And so there was some threat of losing funding that had already been awarded in our community for fiscal year 2025 for both of those programs. There were some fairly immediate legal challenges to those proposed changes by HUD, and that those legal challenges have since resulted in the changes for fiscal year 2025 being struck down. So the most immediate threat, I think we are safe from that. However, the regular funding cycle for this funding source will begin again this summer, and we are anticipating that we will see the same sorts of changes on the table again. So definitely still something that we are going to need to plan for and figure out how we are going to support folks in those programs who have already been receiving that support. And then I wanted to also share that the Right at Home Homelessness Prevention Partnership has awarded the Asheville Buncombe COC a minimum of $5 million for implementation of a system-wide homelessness prevention program for the Asheville region. The proposed implementation period is 3 years, and the target start date for this program is September of this year. And I believe that Emily is going to share some more detail on this as well. Planning is ongoing on this effort, and I anticipate that I will also be able to share a lot more details with you about this program once the board and the partners at Right at Home have approved the finalized plan for implementation this summer. So definitely more details on this to come. And with that, if you all don't have any questions for me, I will turn it over to Emily.
One more question for
Sure.
you, Lacey.
Yeah.
Going back to the families, the increase in families, and you said that's, you're thinking mostly contributed due to Helene, or part of it is due to Helene?
Well, I think that the increase in families that you see in the point in time count has to do with our methodology. So the change in the methodology, particularly out at the Big Ivy Community Center, we saw a significant increase in the number of surveys that we collected this year because we changed the way that we were approaching collecting those surveys in that community. So I think certainly that Helene probably is a contributing factor, but it's tough to say specifically for families if it's primarily due to Helene or more so due to that methodology change.
And so either way, with that, are there efforts to work with our Helene recovery to look at, because you also mentioned the place in Fairview that was due to Helene. And so is there any coordination trying to work with our Helene recovery folks to try to reach out and help these people get back in stable housing?
Yeah, there has been some coordination at the COC level with the disaster case management and with the long-term recovery group. And then I know I've worked with our recovery office on some information, particularly around the winter storms and sheltering efforts at that time. And then I'm not sure if there's other coordination happening that I may not be privy to.
All I would add is that project in Fairview did contribute to the family numbers because that project is specific to families. So that was 43 people and 37 households there. And again, is specific to Helene impacted families. Marcia Mount-Shoop is on the COC board as a representative of the long-term recovery group. That's part of the connectivity there. And then there are other COC board members who are also serving in LTRG committees. So I think there's more informal collaboration than anything specific.
Okay, thank you. And with the Barnesville, was there any other data specifically around that with those that you collected that would be beneficial for us to know about?
From the point in time count
From the point in
specifically,
time.
that would probably be information that your team would have, right?
Really, one thing I would name is that, I don't know the exact number, but a number of the people identified there. 2 years ago, we counted 3 people in Barnardsville. Last year, 16, this year, 41. So I think, we don't have a clear way to know specifically, but I think that is partly improved methodology, like Lacey named, very strong partner with Big Ivy. And partly Barnardsville was so hard hit by Helene, as certainly you all know. I think a number of folks identified in Barnardsville are people who are living in abandoned buildings or facilities without utilities. So a sort of a particular type of unsheltered homelessness that we don't see as often in more urban areas.
Okay, thank you for that additional context.
Extreme need in Barnardsville, I'd say, is the takeaway. Great. All right, good afternoon. I'm so glad to be here with you all. Thanks so much for including me in this. It's great to be here. Thanks to Commissioner Horton and to Lacey for serving on the COC board as your county representatives. I'm going to share a few updates about the implementation of the recommendations from the National Alliance to End Homelessness and also some current COC work. Happy to answer any questions along the way. So first, looking at progress on Within Reach, which is the name of the recommendations from National Alliance to End Homelessness. You'll recall that 3 years ago, time is moving so quickly, the Alliance gave us 116 recommendations to improve homelessness response in our community. 3 of those recommendations were specific to city and county actions. So the city should continue to support strategies with resources it controls, provide administrative support to the COC, continue as collaborative applicant and HMIS lead, and participate in and align with the COC. So functionally, the city should continue to be the lead agency, providing that backbone support to the community collaborative. And then city as local government should align strategy with the COC. County should establish full-time homeless coordinator within Buncombe County to coordinate homeless activities and participation in the larger system. We certainly did that in creating Lacey's position. And then county should support strategies with resources it controls. Safety net resources should be at the forefront of coordination with the COC. So 3 particular recommendations for city and county. Otherwise, all other recommendations are based on community-wide collaboration. So no other actions that a single entity can take alone in order to advance progress. Requiring collaboration and a shared decision-making system across the community. So that is the function of the continuum of care. And the number 1 recommendation in that set of recommendations was to restructure the COC to establish that shared planning, power, responsibility, and accountability, and clarify how we work together at the community level on this issue. As you know, we have done that. COC was established February 29th of 2024 by adopting a new governance charter. And the design of the COC was very deliberate to promote community-wide ownership. So the intention is to align decision makers seated at the board, so folks who represent sectors across our community who are decision makers in their respective arenas, coming together at the board level to direct community efforts, engaging subject matter experts to do detailed work on committees and work groups, And then importantly, the design was to be inclusive of all stakeholders and sectors in our community without taking policy positions. Housing First, for example, was certainly included in the recommendations from the Alliance, but our COC design, Housing First, is not universally adopted by all providers in our community, and our COC design was to be inclusive of all services and perspectives to be sure that, I always say, if you're on the field, you're on the team, and we want you at the table so that we can figure out how to do this together at the community level. COCs are self-governing and developed with buy-in to make decisions meaningful, so it's not meaningful for a COC board to set a policy unless people impacted by that policy sign on to participate in that. So COC has been a very collaborative and participatory development process. We completed strategic planning last year with COC member input and a 2-day board retreat, and that used the Within Reach recommendations as a reference, but the 3-year strategic plan that was adopted by the board last summer is now the guiding document for the COC rather than those recommendations from the Alliance, although you see Alliance recommendations throughout the strategic plan. So the content agrees, but the strategic plan is now our guiding document. And the Alliance is tracking our progress. I went to the Leadership Summit to present on our governance restructure in March, and I saw the CEO in the hallway, and I said, "Oh, I'm Emily in Asheville," and she said, "I know who you are. We're paying attention to Asheville." So I feel like we are. The Alliance is really pleased with the result of that project and with what they're tracking from our community. Again, COC is not formally adopted within Reach recommendations, but that content shows up in the strategic plan. And as I review the recommendations, my assessment is we have completed 18 of those recommendations. Those are the city and county actions that I named, a lot of content related to the COC restructure, some coordinated entry work group activation, HMIS training, some of the housing authority work that Lacey mentioned, and prevention development. We have a lot of things underway that align with the recommendations through system design and development. And then the strategic plan names a few additional things that are echoed in the recommendations around performance management, training, and capacity building. And I would say we have not begun 50 of the recommendations. Almost everything in the Within Reach study it is sequential, so we've got to complete some prerequisites before we can complete some of those other actions. The 3-year strategic plan has a few themes. I would say, again, COC is only 2 years old and really building out this full ecosystem of care around folks experiencing homelessness. So first, looking to establish baseline data, baseline understanding, really building this very common foundation, evaluating utilization of existing resources to ensure we're maxing out everything that we currently have, and then expanding capacity of particular interventions, along with building infrastructure to support this community-wide effort. To implement the plan, each objective has actions that are assigned to COC bodies, so that's a couple to the board and then primarily to committees and work groups throughout the COC with an annual action plan developed every year to prioritize actions to complete in the coming year. There are 4 objectives in the COC strategic plan. The first is to decrease unsheltered homelessness. Obviously a critical issue in our community, and strategies there include increasing utilization of our current shelter and transitional housing beds. So again, wanting to make sure we fill every bed available, and then additionally expanding emergency shelter capacity because we know we don't have enough beds in our community for folks in crisis. Supporting provider capacity to deliver low barrier emergency shelter. Second objective is increasing exits from homelessness to permanent housing. Again, focused on utilization of all of our current housing interventions and then expanding capacity and developing system-level housing navigation infrastructure, meaning where providers are negotiating with landlords, looking to build out some infrastructure to do that collaboratively rather than the highly competitive process that currently exists. Third objective is to coordinate and expand homelessness prevention, diversion, and rapid rehousing. And fourth is to build housing-focused system capacity. So developing standards for service delivery across the COC, developing an annual COC-wide training plan, and then developing and implementing performance measurement. COC is very active. Right now, we have 621 members in the COC. That's both organizations and individuals. And importantly, to me, the more impactful number here is that we have 103 people who are serving on the board, a committee, or a work group. And our committees and work groups are very active. They meet every 2 weeks, often for an hour and a half. So huge amount of community investment of time in this collaborative effort. We have 6 committees, you can see that list there, and then 4 work groups currently. Some of our early wins, I know you've heard some of this from Lacey. Code Purple and Winter Shelter has been executed very differently this year than in the past. That is more beds for more populations with shared infrastructure for operations and data. We had a fair share funding approach this year, which was new for the COC, so a per diem nightly reimbursement rate for folks who are served in Code Purple shelters. Code Purple was funded with city and county funding, but also we received $75,000 from Mission Health for Code Purple, and this is what the COC is built to do, is develop this collaborative plan and then allow investors, funding partners to contribute to that collective plan rather than kind of piecemealing our approach, which we've historically done in the community.
Before we get away from that, and we can come back to it as well, but given what we faced this year with so much inclement weather, can you speak to how this model really made things easier, or where we need to do better to ensure that next year we're not scrambling? I know there were scrambles. It was difficult this year, but I do want to spend some time talking about Code Purple and like how as a county we can make sure we're supporting that adequately.
Do you want to? Yeah. I think some really significant process improvements this year were around operations coordination and communication. So newly this year, we had initiative level operations coordinator positions. They were based at Safe Shelter, but supporting all Code Purple and Winter Shelter sites. It's very new in our community. And it meant there was a single phone number to call if you needed to know which site had a bed available. Also much more communication, very real-time app communication among providers and some first responders. So I think both of those were improvements and can continue to improve in the coming years. Certainly, we learned some things about the need for more real-time data on bed availability, for example. I think this year we had Winter Shelter sort of doubling as Code Purple capacity for men. And that's one of the things that providers identified as being challenging this year. It meant that we didn't actually have much flexible capacity to expand for men, particularly during the coldest Code Purple nights. So I think that's something that the COC will look at in planning in the coming year. Much of our funding this year was one-time funding. That was CDBG DDRF funding at the city, $250,000. DDRF was Helene money, so one-time money, and then also $128,000 in city ARPA funding. So in order to we will continue to need additional resources to maintain the capacity that we had this year as we look for next year.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that the Code Purple work group, which is comprised of Code Purple providers as well as various support entities like representation from the AFD REST team, from community paramedics, and other supportive services. We've been kind of already starting to go through a sort of a debriefing process, what we think went well and what we think we need to really focus on in our planning efforts for next year. So I think I will be able to answer that question kind of as we complete that process and look at what we're hearing from providers. I know one thing that I have been hearing a lot is that we need to, I think we started planning earlier this past year than we had even in years past, but maybe continuing to do that. And then one thing I will name as well, is, in addition to the need for funding support, is facilities. So we are very grateful that the Salvation Army allowed Safe Shelter to utilize their New Leicester Highway location for men this year. I don't think that location is going to be available to us next year. So we are already talking about and trying to brainstorm for what are our options. And I know that the chair of that work group has engaged the faith community in quite a meaningful way, trying to see if there might be options there, but I don't think we've identified, at this stage in the game, we have not yet identified concrete options. So something for us to think about.
That's right. In the past, ABCCM's Veterans Restoration Quarters was a really critical site for Code Purple, and with a huge capacity, huge ability to flex up based on demand, that site, of course, was lost on Helene. So that is a pretty key gap for us.
The one thing I would like to also bring to light, they're giving me the funny eye, so I'll borrow this one. The one thing I'd also like y'all to mention would be that daytime. When the temperatures really dropped cold this last winter, we struggled to have daytime shelter.
Folks have to be out by what, 8 a.m.? That's
7:30.
7:30. I mean, it's honestly probably when it's coldest out. Folks have to go out in the cold after being through the
Yeah, and I will say, we had providers who were able to keep folks at times, but not every provider was able to do that. So I think it would be great if, as part of our planning efforts next year, if we could kind of come up with some standardized parameters for that. And that's work that we've kind of already started undertaking. But I will also just note, part of that conversation includes talking with providers about capacity, and in particular staffing capacity. So.
I mean, it's,
I think Commissioner Horton has had her light on with a question.
So during the time where they don't have, people in the shelters, they utilize the time to clean and prepare for the next evening. So maybe even some day centers. I mean, in another realm, we call it day programs, but like day centers so that they have some of the things.
Yeah, and we do have some day center capacity, but we know that we have gaps in hours. So particularly like on the weekends, there are not a lot of options for folks to go to during the weekend hours, during those daytime hours. So that's part of our conversations and ongoing planning efforts for this year, I would say. And I think, Code Purple, the season officially wraps up at the end of April, so I am anticipating at my next quarterly update that I'll have data and information to share with you all about how it went this season and how that debriefing process has gone and what's come out of it.
yeah, I'm sorry.
I'll be remiss to say, not if I don't say, all of that's gonna mean funding.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the hardest things about this is that it's just simply a building with space where we can have beds, right? And so when you think about the amount of space around the county where folks could be inside as opposed to outside, I just encourage us as a commission to think creatively about our facilities and where we can expand the map a little bit, so to speak, during Code Purple, the most critical time of the year. Yeah.
Don't we have some schools who are working on a project for AC rentals, I believe it is, that it's gonna be a shelter? I remember that in a meeting.
I think that was,
I think that's for emergency hub.
Because
not
they would be in school during the day.
That's right.
Right,
For
yeah, doing the-
disaster related. That's a great point though, but yeah, I think it's disaster related.
Okay.
Does COC have, is the manpower there to staff facilities? Or if the room is if we have space available, or is it also just a manpower issue of not having enough folks to work those Code Purple shelters as well?
I think the way providers would answer that is that it's just dependent on funding. So I think providers want to be able to care for people in that way, and providers across all of their program slates are working on fundraising all the time. But I think any funding availability that can support that, I think they will find the staff to make it happen.
Thank you.
All right, great questions. We'll let you keep going down your slide deck.
Great. We have a memorandum of understanding between the COC and the Housing Authority for admissions preferences. That's very new. We had our kickoff meeting for that yesterday. So that's a really exciting new partnership between the COC and the Housing Authority. We'll literally end homelessness for people in our community because of that dedicated pathway. So it will mean that we have kind of a fast track for entry for referrals that come through the COC for housing authority development, so into project-based vouchers at housing authority properties. Those are folks who will get 12 months of case management support from a COC provider after move-in. And the housing authority's plan is to alternate entries between their typical wait list and then these admissions preferences through the COC. So really significant capacity expansion. And then also 100 dedicated tenant-based vouchers through the housing authority for referrals coming through the COC. So incredibly exciting opportunity to add housing capacity.
I just want to make a note, we can certainly come back to it, but seeing coordinated entry, either now or before you head out, can you give us an update on what is happening with coordinated entry? I think we've all been hearing pockets about that, where we go.
Yes, I can go ahead and jump in to say, so coordinated entry, as you know, the big idea is we pool all of our folks who need housing and we pool all of our housing resources, and then we make matches based on what people particularly need. And acknowledging that we absolutely don't have enough resources to fully meet the housing needs, there's a prioritization scheme that directs how people are assigned those housing interventions. The COC has a coordinated entry work group focused on a full redesign of our coordinated entry system so that it's not as dependent on people to magically find the right door to knock on to get the resource that they need. That's underway right now. We have technical assistance support from HUD that is helping to direct that work. And currently, that group has developed a new assessment tool that will be rolling out at the end of this month. They're presenting that to the membership this Thursday at that meeting, and then it'll go into a testing phase. But that will replace the iSPDAT, which you may or may not be familiar with, but the assessment tool that we've previously been using that's very cumbersome and problematic in a number of ways. This will be a local assessment to identify the vulnerability level of folks that we can then use to follow that prioritization. So all of this heavily under development right now. I think we're likely to see kind of a fully revised coordinated entry plan come to the COC board late summer is my guess.
Thanks. I think we'll look forward to hearing more as that starts to get ironed out.
Just one note on this housing authority admissions preference. The process here, I've included a lot of detail, which I won't go through, but just to name that this is exactly what the COC is built to do. So we have decision makers on the board. We have Ella Santos with the housing authority sitting in that seat on the board. The board included this in the strategic plan, and that action item was assigned to the board. Board identified folks to work on that with the housing authority, went through a thorough process to establish those providers, and then all referrals will come through coordinated entry. So really system development around this pretty complicated issue. And then lastly, Lacey mentioned the Right at Home initiative. I'll just quickly highlight that we're one of 10 communities that were selected as a pilot community for this national initiative on homelessness prevention. We'll receive at least $5 million to keep at least 1,000 households in their current housing so that they don't enter homelessness. This is building on a model in Santa Clara County that demonstrated 90% of households were still in housing after 2 years. And for every $1 invested, it saved $2.47 in community costs. So this is an exciting opportunity for us to keep folks in housing right now, but also the goal of the initiative is to demonstrate, build the evidence base for a national homelessness prevention strategy for future federal funding. So it is a pretty exciting cutting edge initiative to be part of in our community. We are one of 3 communities in the Southeast, along with Miami and Atlanta, but one of the only communities our size to be included. And we were only eligible for this opportunity because of the COC structure. And you can see the selection criteria there. So having that strong local infrastructure, including the ability to coordinate providers and manage funds, which we now have because we have this community level organization. Key focus areas for the COC right now, continuing to build out that foundation, as I've been mentioning. Certainly emergency shelter continues to be a high priority in the COC. We have a work group that Lacey's part of that has completed needs analysis and an initial vision for new emergency shelter. And we have a pending planning grant for CDBG DR funding with the city for project management capacity to help really build out that plan. So we'll know more about that planning grant possibility soon. And then again, as Lacey named, we have a collaborative fund development effort happening. We know that we have some critical funding needs coming up in order to just maintain the current capacity that we have. And we also know the current capacity that we have is inadequate. And so if we're gonna scale services to be more responsive to the need, then we'll have to identify new and ongoing funding sources to be able to do that. I believe that's it for me. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, and this is a wonderful update. I really appreciate you coming and sharing all this, because this is a significant step in the right direction, a lot of progress since we met, what was that, 2023?
3 years ago,
Yeah. So thank you very much, and it's good to hear about the coordinated entry, because I remember that was something that kept being brought up whenever we were going around and looking at other places, and they all were saying how important that was when we made that trip to Raleigh and various. So thanks for the update on that. And the strategic plan, there was also the prevention, diversion, and rapid rehousing. Can you speak some more to that category and some of the plans and what progress you're making, or what you're thinking about in that area as well?
Yes, on the diversion is once people have already become homeless, can we divert them from the system by helping solve that housing crisis very early? Often that looks like reconnection with friends or family, something very, very light touch like that. We had applied for a grant, the COC had applied for a grant to resource some diversion planning and implementation, which we didn't get. So we've not yet taken any action on diversion. Right at Home will fully satisfy all of the prevention actions in the strategic plan. Will help us really not only meet that immediate need, but really build out a system for homelessness prevention. And then the Housing Authority partnership, the target population for folks moving in through that Housing Authority admissions preference are people who meet rapid rehousing criteria. So that will add a number of housing slots for rapid rehousing. That's the current effort on rapid rehousing expansion.
Okay, thank you. That's definitely a positive step.
Thank you. Are there other questions for Emily or Lacey?
I have a question. What are the barriers? Because we know that right now there's great concern with our homeless population rising here in Buncombe County. What are the barriers to you getting the work done, making an impact on that homeless population here?
Well, I think funding is critical. I mean, I think, and you all see this, of course, in your work all the time. I think, again, in order to just hold the line with our current capacity, we will need more funding than we currently have. And our current capacity is not sufficient to meet the need, particularly for folks who are unsheltered. I think emergency shelter is a critical need for us. Very literally, if any of us around this table needed emergency shelter tonight, there's not a bed we can walk up and get. So making that emergency shelter capacity available, which will require capital funding, but critically, it will require ongoing operating funding. And I think before we're able, I hope we'll see project management capacity come online to be able to build out a funding plan, but we know that we'll need many dedicated dollars in order to execute that in the community. I think that the work of homelessness response is system level work. So it is looking at how do we decrease inflow by helping people stay in their homes or resolve that crisis early. How do we meet the crisis needs people have, so keep people safe while they are currently experiencing homelessness through shelter and other services? And then how do we get people out into housing of their own that will work for them? There's not a single point in that continuum that solves the problem. We must have adequate capacity throughout that full service system. And we must have significant additional resources in order to fully build out that service system. And then the other thing I would name is, I think the magic of the COC and the ongoing opportunity of the COC is for real buy-in across sectors in our community to participate in this collaborative decision-making at the community level so that we can get all of these efforts aligned so they'll have maximum impact.
It's multifaceted.
Yeah, and I just want to say too, I want to make sure that we keep this in the context of what we're seeing nationally. So what's happening here in our community is what is happening nationally. So it's not that we are not doing something or we're doing something wrong. We are trying to solve a national, federal level problem with largely, mostly local resources. You know, federal support for permanent supportive housing and rapid rehousing has been essential. We're looking at significant changes to that, which means that there probably won't be, certainly there won't be as much federal support. And those folks still need housing. We obviously don't want them to re-enter the system because of those changes. There is some state level support for homelessness and housing, but I would say it's not sufficient to meet the need either. So I just like to try to remind us of that we're working on a problem that is much bigger than just our community, and we are being asked to respond to it at the community level.
And in our community, compounded by Helene, of course.
Right. So some of the barrier is really that. It's that the problem is so much larger than just our community, and the resources available just aren't enough. So
funding and resources is what I'm hearing.
absolutely, yeah.
Does your advocacy subcommittee work at the state and federal level as well?
That's the intention. They've just been stood up. So they were appointed just 2 months ago. So not yet, but that's the intention.
Thank you both, and thank you to Commissioner Horton for serving on this really important board. And we'll look forward to, at our third meeting in May, an update from the virtual meeting during our board updates section. So thank you all, and many thanks to you as well, Commissioner Horton.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Avril, I see that it is 5 after 4, and we have a good bit of work to accomplish in the next bit. So we're going to try to stay on track, y'all. Unless we'll start with the health insurance update, which is next.
And we do have a visitor for that, so we'll get through that.
Okay. You okay? The table jumped up and hit him.
All right.
Hello, Shauna. It's nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. Today we have Ro from USI, that is our broker, so she will be starting off today. And we'll get some of your time back and be brief, yeah? So we can make sure we're
This is
on
important.
schedule. Yes, we will make sure you have those pertinent information. But without further ado, Ro, would you like to go ahead?
Absolutely. So which one's the
This is your
controller?
clicker.
Okay, thank you. All right, good afternoon. So very quickly, we're going to try to go through today the trend summary over the last 5 years of the health plan to kind of show us where we've been and kind of what's leading us to the direction and some of the decisions that we need to make for calendar year 2027. We'll look at some high-level benchmarking again to support some of the decisions that need to be made. And then we'll talk about what the projected cost is for calendar year 27. So on this slide, we're looking at the past 5 years, and year over year, Bunkum's medical and prescription costs have increased approximately, when you average it all out, about 4 to 5% year over year, with obviously some fluctuations, as you see on the right column there, within each of the years. So the overall trend, when you blend all of those periods together, we're looking at a 30% increase. However, I know that number sounds scary and very high, but it is actually lower than what our anticipated trend would have been, which is 45%. So while we're looking at a big number of 30%, in reality, we could have potentially have been looking at 45%, which really indicates that all of the wellness and health initiatives that the county is doing is having a positive impact on the plan. The most recent renewal, which was the for the 26 calendar year, we looked at an 11% increase from 25 to 26. And just for some reference points, we're looking at, for just North Carolina for 26, if you were a North Carolina employer that was not a municipality, so just your average run-of-the-mill employer, their trend was running a little bit lower at 9.38%. And the main reason for that is non-municipality or non-public entity employers tend to have less rich plan designs where their employees pay more out of pocket, and therefore the cost sharing between their employer and the employees is greater. And then other North Carolina municipalities, on average, their trend was 13.14%. So while an 11.7% increase, a trend increase is higher than we would like, it's still lower than what we're seeing in other similar industries to Buncombe County.
Was there any specific reason that that trend went up, even though I know ours is in line with everyone else, just overall?
It's really high-cost claimants. So we're seeing an increase in utilization, but then also an increase in some of those higher-cost members that are driving those big dollars. So on this slide, we're taking the information from the previous slide and kind of breaking it down a little bit further just so that you could see year over year. We took a look at your average monthly enrollment. So there has been an increase from 2020 through 2025 in enrolled members. And then the top of the graph is showing what our gross expenses, and this is before we're backing out any reimbursements. And then the bottom is really ultimately what the county has been paying year over year once we back out stop loss reimbursements, which are those high cost claimants. So essentially the health plan has a protective layer of stop loss insurance where we get reimbursed for any claims on individuals over a certain dollar threshold amount. So then we look at what our net expense is, and there was a big jump over, from 24 to 25. And again, that big driver, if you take a look, is that reimbursement. There were some high cost claimants that impacted that plan. On this graph, we're just taking a look at the actual breakdown of where we saw these dollars being spent. And we're looking at the blue column is your previous year, so that's Buncombe County actual. Then the orange is most recent, so we're looking at 24 to 25. And then the green column is just other North Carolina municipalities. So we're benchmarking against ourselves year over year, but then other North Carolina municipalities. And as you will see in every category, we saw a big increase in utilization. So we saw an uptick in inpatient visits. We saw an uptick in also outpatient visits, in office visits, and then also most notably pharmacy. So we saw that as a result, and that's really what drove for Buncombe County that increase in plan trend. There you go, Shauna. Now I will turn it over to Shauna to talk more specifically about the budget.
All right, we're going to talk about the.
Oh, absolutely.
One
Go ahead.
question before you go on, looking back at the historical plan performance, so those jumps, you're saying each of those is mostly because of the large claimants?
Right, there has been an increase in overall utilization across where we're seeing that more in the outpatient and professional space, but then the real driver of the increase in inpatient and pharmacy are those high-cost claimants.
Okay, and then the outpatient and professional, do you think that's probably due to Helene potentially, that our increase is?
We don't have the data to kind of correlate it with that, but the data didn't drill down into specifically like what the causes were from kind of an environmental perspective. It really drilled down more into the utilization, different conditions, drivers like diabetes and musculoskeletal were kind of the big drivers for Buncombe County, but it didn't take into account what the environmental drivers of that could have been.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for those questions. All right, so I'm going to talk about the county health plan updates. Oh, it keeps going. All right, so we have a few considerations $40 million plus expected claims costs in current and future years. And to know, we talked about how rich our plans are. And Buncombe County covers about 92% of costs on average, giving about $20,000 per employee. And this is very much a rich plan. You will see in other cities and counties that split can easily be between 85 to 15. So we do have a very good plan here. For fiscal year 27, our general fund health insurance impact will be about $5.3 million. If you look at, for our next slide, for employee premium costs, we have two primary objectives, and that is to rebalance employee premium contributions to more equitably share rising healthcare costs. And you all, no matter what organization that you're in, healthcare costs are just tremendously high year after year after year. This is something that we still want to make sure as county that we're still competitive, and we very much are. So our second primary objective is to adjust rate tiers to better reflect the number of individuals covered. So we have subscribers in various plans, right? Whether it's our PPO plans, our health, our high deductible high plans. So we want to make sure that, again, we're rebalancing that, because as you look at the sharing, the increase in claims costs, the county is taking on $5.3 million, and the employee premium is right about $522,000. But we must all take ownership of our health. So we need employees to be proactive in taking the HRA wellness incentive that we offer, but also making sure they take their physical exams. You take your physical exam, it's at $0 cost, right? There's no cost to them. And their doctor is able to proactively look at those measures. But then if they don't, what happens? All of a sudden there's a $5,000 claim because you haven't gone to the doctor in the last year. So we want to show that we want to do our part with the county, but we also need employees to proactively be a part of their health and wellness as well. So our overall goal is to be an employer of choice and to remain competitive. As you look to the right side, the range of increases here from the high deductible high plan going all the way to your standard plan. And this is very specific for the cost reflective of those that take the health risk assessment, as I mentioned. With the high deductible high plan, you'll see that there's no increase there. And that's simply because year after year, we have to make sure we're compliant with the deductible. And you all, as the county commissioners, have already agreed to a 50% through the health savings account for that deductible. So because we see that being a thriving and we want to promote employees to be within that plan, there will be no increase to that particular plan. Also, as we look at health insurance, we want to look at it from a total rewards package, right? Mm-hmm. Our total rewards are our benefits, our leave accruals, our compensation, even our unique services that we have at the employee health clinic, right? That are available to employees and their children that are still at a lower cost than what you would have going to your PCP. So I want to reiterate that this is an overall total rewards package, and we're still proud to say, even with the work of USI, of looking at benchmarks, and the incredible work of the human resources team and the community partners that we have, we are still very much in line to be very competitive. As a result of the information that we provided today, do you all have any other additional questions for us?
So are you taking a look at kind of the trend with the high cost claimants and seeing if there's something, because I know in the past, we've looked at programs to try to decrease the likelihood of the high cost claimants. So are you looking at those trends that we're currently seeing with that and looking at ways we can address that?
Absolutely. And one of those is, as we said, diabetes and blood pressure, high blood pressure. We provide different wellness events for our employees to take advantage of. We also look at those trends on a quarterly basis, right? So what are some proactive educational programs and seminars that we can provide? Because oftentimes it may not just be the employees, right? Who else is on our plan? It's our spouses, it's children. So we also want to make sure we're providing those resources as well. Do you have anything additional?
Sure, and that's something that we look at, as Shauna mentioned, quarterly, but also annually, to make sure that we have the best partners to work with us in that regard and to help come up with solutions that are driven specifically for your population. So we are currently in the process of an RFP to select a new HRA vendor and a couple of other vendors that we feel, because we don't feel like the current vendor is truly serving your population the way it should be and it needs to be. So that's something that we're looking at, and part of that process in selecting a new vendor will also be what are the programs that we have in place and what are additional or different solutions that we can bring to the table to make sure that we are staying proactive. So not only are we addressing the current conditions, but what are we doing to stay ahead of the curve and to make sure that we're catching those before they become that high cost claimant.
Right. In addition to that, we also want to look at it holistically, right? So we talk a lot about a cough, right? Physical, your legs, and you need to go to physical therapy. But what else is important is mental health, right? So we're also reevaluating our vendor through our employee assistance program. They're asking us for resources, and we want to make sure that our employees and their families are utilizing that, because mental health as well as physical health is just as important, right?
I was hoping to hear them say a little bit around, today we're talking about that premium increase, but what Ro and Shauna talked about as far as talking about vendors, that is our program design. And we're not talking about that yet because everything is out to RFP, and we will bring that back later to say if we're making any changes. You remember last year we added autoimmune and some of those other programs we added to help address the underlying issues in health. We're not at that stage yet. So as soon as that RFP comes back, then we can really see what programs we want to add or take away because they're not being effective. So I was hoping to hear y'all talk a little bit about the design pieces coming later.
Okay.
Do we have a goal that we're trying to get to when we look at percentage the county is paying versus the employee? Because, a lot of the Fortune 500 companies and a lot of the companies here in Buncombe County, they're not that. The most they are paying is about 80%.
Yes.
So we have excellent plan,
We do, and I'll jump in, and then the rest, we've talked about right sizing that. As you recall, we have 4 different plans. That standard plan that is now closed to current employees or to new hires, that is that was like a 94.5 or 95.5. It's that plan we can't touch because that is a grandfathered plan.
Right.
The other, so when you look at in totality, when you see that 92%, that plan helps to
that
average
keeps
out the
it
others.
okay.
So we have been, right, okay.
Right, incrementally, that's right. Each year, we have been making incremental changes
To
to
the
the other plans to
Right.
try and get us more in line.
More
But
in line.
as Avril stated, because the standard plan is that grandfathered plan that's very rich.
I
it
forgot
does-
about that.
Yeah, it does skew the numbers a little bit, but we don't want to rip the Band-Aid off right away and just hit,
Right.
your population with big increases. So it's been done incrementally. Each year, we make small changes to kind of get us more in line with other municipalities, but while still remaining competitive.
So I think I'm gonna ask this in a different way, just to understand. Looking at rebalancing the employee premium contributions, will that impact, we saw on there that Buncombe County covers 92% of costs on average. Will that rebalancing of premiums bring that 92% down? Or am I conflating two very different things?
It's going to still be right about that 92%.
Okay.
We do slowly want to get down, right? But to make that close to it would be a significant hit. So we are trying to do increments.
Okay, yes, I appreciate that
And
clarification.
the point I was trying to make is that standard plan, because it is so much a cost share, and a lot of our employees are still in that plan. The other plans balance out.
Thank you.
But we do try to rebalance almost, this will be an increase that we're talking about this year to the employees. That increase really does not help to rebalance that 96.4 that is happening in the standard plan.
Okay,
Thank you for that.
thank you. Thank you for clarifying all of that.
Absolutely.
And so the 5.3 million for this coming year's budget includes these changes, or?
Yes.
Yes.
It
Yes, ma'am.
does?
Yes.
Okay.
So it sounds like we're talking about this earlier this year than we've done in the past to give employees the opportunity to understand the premium cost versus later on in the year so they can prepare for that. Any other questions?
Any other questions? Shauna and Ro, we appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for joining us. Okay, we have our 2025 strategic plan closeout.
And commissioners, if you
Yes.
want, we can actually move the CDBG-DR to our manager's report out.
Tonight, okay.
And it was just really to let you know where we stand on the DR and the programs that we're looking to apply for, it more of a update, so that would go to 5 o'clock.
Oh, man.
Thank you for hanging out with us this whole time, Tyler. We will see you back at 5. Good afternoon, Andy. It's nice to see you.
Good afternoon, Board of Commissioners. My name is Andy Zoller. I'm with the Office of Strategy and Innovation, and I have the unique privilege of presenting to you the closeout of the Buncombe County Strategic Plan 2025. Whoops, too fast. The Buncombe County Strategic Plan 2025 was uniquely the first of its kind. It was unique in the effort it took, not only from county staff, Board of Commissioners, but from the community as well. Faced with three major events, COVID, Tropical Storm Fred, and Tropical Storm Helene, staff, Board of Commissioners, and our community not only participated in the development and the implementation of the plan, but faced the challenges of both response and recovery. For the Strategic Plan 2025, there were 13 public engagement opportunities and 20 different workshops with departmental and Board of Commissioner engagement and input sessions as well. Despite challenges throughout the process beyond what we could have imagined, we developed and implemented the plan, and with that established a new vision, mission, and focus area. Our vision, Buncombe County is a caring community in harmony with its environment, where citizens succeed, thrive, and realize their potential, and our mission to promote a healthy, safe, well-educated, and thriving community. In the plan, we created 4 focus areas and 1 internal focus area that came out of public engagement and staff input. The community focus areas were educated and capable community, environmental and energy stewardship, resident well-being, and vibrant economy. And we had 1 internal focus area, our foundational focus area, which focused on equity, operational excellence, and resources. This afternoon, we want to highlight the success and accomplishments of the 2025 strategic plan based on the 4 external focus areas. Although this is not an exhaustive list, the intent is to show that work was going on despite our challenges, and that the 2025 strategic plan laid the groundwork for departmental business plans, budgeting, and county priorities, and the basis for the next new plan, 2030 plan. As a reminder, the 2025 plan was tied directly to departmental business plans, and those were directly tied to focus areas. In the strategic plan 2030, those goals are unique with SMART goals and are not necessarily tied to business plans as they are standalone, unique goals. Our targets and measures for the 2025 plan were reviewed monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, and annually with regular report outs both to the County Management's Office and the Board of Commissioners. We provided a handout in your package today that gives a deeper dive into the accomplishments as well as some of the challenges to full accomplishments of some targets and measures. Although not every target or measure or goal was met, it did not mean we didn't have success or measurable change. Our goal is to highlight some of the incredible work that was accomplished while acknowledging that work continues to sustain the work as well as to continue the work in areas that we may not have fully reached. So here we go. Our first focus area was environmental and energy stewardship. The vision of this focus area was to have high-quality air, water, farmland, and renewable energy for future generations. We had two goals in here: reduce greenhouse gas emissions and preserve farmland and environmentally sensitive tract. The way we accomplished the first goal was we implemented a replacement plan for our carbon-emitting county vehicles and invested in charging stations. As of today, 33 EV stations, with 12 more are currently under construction. We increased our renewable energy access via our solar system installations. Across the county, 54 solar systems were installed. 15 were for county operations, including the 5-megawatt utility project at the Woodfin landfill. 39 projects supported community-wide goals with installations at county schools, AV Tech facilities, and fire stations. We also implemented an electronic plan review, reducing paper utilization. Our permits and inspection department is now at 100% of electronic reviews. In addition, as well as our air quality department, who worked with our IT department to establish an air quality complaint module in our Excella program, which updates our data management system and facilitates information throughout the county that enforce codes and that sort of thing. We also had the opportunity to reduce county operations greenhouse gas emissions through the emergency services ambulance idle mitigation systems. This has prevented approximately 378 pounds of carbon dioxide emissions and saved over $68,000 in fuel cost. In addition to that, the second goal, which was preserve farmland and environmentally sensitive tracts, we increased our funding for conservation easement projects through the Buncombe Farmland Preservation Program and local land trust. And as to date, we've conserved over 3,750 total acres cumulatively over the 5-year strategic plan. It's incredible work. But the work doesn't finish there. Just because we accomplish a goal, it does continue. And that is true in our 2030 plan. For energy and environment, our strategic plan objectives are to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and protect air quality, as well as continue to preserve agriculture heritage of Buncombe County and prioritize the conservation of natural resources. Our second focus area is vibrant economy. This has a couple of goals in it. The first one was to implement land use strategies that encourage affordable housing near transportation and jobs. Since July 2021, Buncombe County funds have had the following housing impacts. For our affordable housing service program, we had 161 affordable rental units built. We had 60 affordable rental units currently that are under construction. We have 485 emergency home repairs that were completed, and 67 households purchased a home with a down payment assistance. 861 households received tenant-based rental assistance. For our ARPA plan, the American Rescue Plan Act, 125 deeply affordable units are under construction to house people experiencing homelessness, as well as 29 emergency repairs completed. And part of our affordable housing bond, 570 affordable rental units are currently under construction, with 696 total funded. For vibrant economy, continued, increase medium income household income to the North Carolina benchmark. We work to increase the average wage for Buncombe County incentivized projects, and we increased the median household income for STEP graduates as our average hourly wages grew 31% to $19.66 an hour in fiscal year 2025. In addition to that, we engage our community partners, including Accelerate Buncombe, which served 110 community members seeking job training. And we established the Affordable Parking Program, which offers a flat $40 per month parking pass to downtown workers who make 80% of AMI or less. Our third goal is increase total employment in the region's targeted industries. We increased small business and startup jobs such as expansions by Poppy and East Fork Pottery. And we increased the total employment in advanced manufacturing, professional office, and information technology jobs, including $715,500,000 in investments by Pratt & Whitney, System Logistics, and Borg Warner, and those investments are continuing. During COVID, the county created the One Buncombe Fund to provide financial assistance to small businesses. 100% of those One Buncombe funds received were dispersed. This included 1,237 households receiving emergency assistance to help with basic needs. 353 small businesses were assisted, including 95 low-interest loans, helping retain 685 jobs, and 258 reopen and rehire grants, helping rehire 793 jobs. In addition, lastly, for this goal, the county partnered with state and internet providers to expand broadband services to over 2,000 households. Just like our first one, the work continues, but with Vibrant Economy, we split it into two focus area groups. We have economic development and growth and development. Each one of those have different objectives that are working towards some of those similar goals. Our third focus area, which was one of our larger focus areas, was resident well-being. Our first goal in there was to increase access to public transportation. We saw a continuing grow in ridership through the Mountain Mobility Program. The ridership increased on deviated routes from 29,393 in 2020 to 32,936 in 2024. Mountain Mobility saw significant year-over-year growth in ridership beginning in fiscal year 2022 and continuing to October of 2024, when the impacts of Tropical Storm deeply impacted that measure. Fiscal year 2024, however, Mountain Mobility's deviated fixed route and demand response services operated at levels either surpassing or within 10% of the pre-pandemic ridership levels. So even though we didn't quite meet the target, we did see increase in improvement. Second one was expand and maintain cultural and recreational assets. We maintained high-quality parks. We improved recreational outcomes for residents in underserved communities by expanding the core programming, which saw participation grow by more than 40%. In addition to that, we added a second Special Olympics game at the A.C. Reynolds High School and awarded over $12 million in grants from the Tourism Development Authority for the Inca Recreation Destination and Woodford Greenway and Blueway. However, we still have continued work to increase the miles of Greenway due to Tropical Storm Helene. Greenways were either closed or destroyed, but efforts for that recovery are underway via the Parks and Recreation Master Plan as well as the 2030 plan. For resident well-being continue, we had to eliminate deaths as a result of substance abuse. We continue to work to decrease the number of substance abuse overdose deaths. Although we did not eliminate overdose deaths, we did see a trend downward, a 30% year-over-year decrease, but we did not reach those targets that we set back in 2020. We saw an increased access to behavioral health services, including expansion of the community paramedic post-overdose response team. We saw a decrease in the number of emergency department visits due to overdoses by 35%. The percentage of children who entered custody with the reason of parental substance use declined from 40% in 2020 to 33% in 2025. And there's your handout. Again, resident well-being being a large group, reduced jail population and enhanced public safety was the next goal. We saw an increase in the percentage of outdated warrants recalled from 7.6% in fiscal year 2021 to 12.5% in fiscal year 2025. In addition, we saw increased alternate pathways to move through the justice system, including the expansion of felony drug diversion and adult misdemeanor diversion programs. In that, we secured a $2.19 million in grants and implemented a community safety and violence prevention initiative. We also established a court navigator position in the courthouse, and Aspire Court is recognized as a national model academy by the National Center for Driving While Impaired, or DWI courts. We continue to work to reduce EMS response times and increase community safety and accountability to those who do harm. During this plan, we completed an emergency management service study to develop recommendations to respond to increased service demand and improve ambulance response times across the county. Also, in this plan, we increased the number of ambulances from 11 in fiscal year 2022 to 14 in fiscal year 2025. Resident well-being is continued in 2030, but again, with this one, we divided it into two focus area groups, community health and public safety, in which we continue to work on those goals. Our last focus area group for the 2025 plan is educated and capable. Our first goal in here was to increase kindergarten readiness. Some ways that we did that was we enhanced early childhood educators' ability to provide high quality early childhood education through the POP or preschool outreach program. As of fiscal year 2025, POP served 52 child care centers and 167 classrooms. We continued to work to increase the percentage of incoming kindergarten students who scored proficient on the kindergarten entry assessment. Some of the items that affected that were definitely Tropical Storm Helene, COVID, and Tropical Storm Fred. We increased third grade literacy rates, especially among underperforming students. We strengthened our educational partnerships to increase student performance and disparities. Our percentage of third graders scoring proficient in reading and math rose from 51.1% in fiscal year 2022 to 58% in fiscal year 2025. The last two goals in educating capable were improved college and career readiness. We reduced youth involvement in the justice system to include a 43% decrease in juvenile complaints in fiscal year 2025. We did this through coordinated efforts across schools in the county by the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council, the Community-Based Public Health Response to Violence, and the School Justice Partnership, as well as the NC Division of Juvenile Justice. We strengthened our education partnerships, including the establishment of the School Justice Partnership. And we continue to work to engage students in this plan in the electoral process. That was also affected by Tropical Storm Helene, as well as Fred and COVID. The last one was to protect older residents' ability to age in place. Buncombe County hosted the inaugural Age Friendly Summit Conference in May 2024, with the theme of the conference being the future of aging. From fiscal year 2022 to fiscal year 2025, over 3,495 older adults and unpaid caregivers received services from the Buncombe County Supplemental Aging Fund. The county special assistance in-home program increased and is currently serving 108 individuals. And there's a waiting list currently for our in-home aid program with a wait list of over 100 folks. Education is continued in the 2030 strategic plan. The 2030 objectives are enhance early and adult learning and improve outcomes in education. So what are our next steps? That was a lot to cover for a 5-year plan with a lot of data. But I think the important thing is that we want to continue to sustain our gains that we achieved in the 2025 and continue to monitor new trends. Trends are changing all the time. So we want to make sure that we continue to monitor those. Some ways that we can do that is through our continued unfinished business that we're continuing in the 2030 plan, recovery plan, the comprehensive plan, and even the Parks and Rec master plan that's coming up. Currently, work is underway on the 2030 strategic plan, including the development of the public-facing dashboard that will track our progress. And our first update to the Board of Commissioners is scheduled to take place in the fall of 2026. All of these were accomplished despite the challenges faced in both disaster, pandemics, economics, and uncertainty of what the future may hold. It was not just one person in Buncombe County, it was the entire organization and community working towards common goals to better our community we both work in and live. We want to say thank you to you, the board, for allowing us to report out the conclusion of the 2025 plan and some of these key accomplishments. And without your support and help, we're not able to accomplish those. So thank you. We look forward to the next 5 years and the successes that come from the new strategic plan 2030. And I'll pause there for any questions or comments.
Thank you, Andy. I want to reiterate what you just said, that this wasn't just one person. This was the entire staff, this was our community, this was the Board of Commissioners who were all working together to achieve these goals. And the point of a strategic plan is we're not going to be 100% perfect on every single goal, and it leaves us room to improve as a county as we move forward in our 2030 strategic plan. So there's always work to do and room to grow, and I think we had a great foundation getting started with this strategic plan. So many kudos to the entire Buncombe County team and our community for joining in and pitching in with new partnerships and looking to serve our community in new and better ways. Are there questions, commissioners? I see Commissioner Whiteside.
I would just like to point out and continue to commend you. And when you look at the major roadblocks we had over the 5-year period, if we hadn't been working together as a community, staff, commission, everyone, we couldn't have accomplished what we did do, and which is great. But I think that's what we can't lose track of, is what we can accomplish when we work together in the community, when everyone comes together. And that's what I'm glad to see that we have done here. You know, the way we reach out to the community on everything that we do. And it's proven through this. We see that what we're doing with community engagement and all that we do is paying off for us today. So let's keep it up. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Yeah.
Definitely thanks to all staff for the tremendous amount of work, and this is a really good progress that we've made. So thank you for that update, and also it helps us think about informing as we're going forward too, because it was really good to see like where we're making that progress and where we have some room there to continue to address some of the needs within the community. So very much appreciate everyone's work.
Especially the commissioners, so thank you. Commissioners, the other item is short, so it's up to you if you want to knock it out now or if you.
We can knock it out.
All right, guys.
Tyler, you've waited for 2 hours. Come on up.
All right, is Tyler doing it by himself? Okay.
Tyler Henry with a CDBG-DR update.
No pressure to be quick at all.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
All right. Well, good afternoon. So today I'm going to walk through quickly the county's approach for the Commercial District Revitalization Program under CDBG-DR. So this is an early stage planning discussion to align priorities, potential projects, next steps as we prepare for full applications. So at a high level, North Carolina received about $1.4 billion in DR funding to support long-term recovery from Helene. The majority of the funding is focused on housing, especially single-family rehabilitation, but there are several competitive programs that allow for local governments to address broader recovery needs. The Commercial District Revitalization Program is one of those opportunities and gives us a way to directly support economic recovery by rebuilding and strengthening commercial areas that were physically damaged. A quick overview of the program: there's $111 million total statewide, with $40 million available in this first round, a maximum award of $10 million per project. Importantly, there's no local match required, but the grant is reimbursed-based. And both local governments and nonprofits can apply, though nonprofits do need local government backing for eligibility. There's a large emphasis on physical improvements in commercial areas impacted by the storm. That includes things such as rebuilding, infrastructure improvements, and mitigation, but does not include things such as workforce programming or direct business subsidies at current design. The intent of the program is to rebuild structures and also restore economic activity. That means getting businesses back online, bringing customers back into these areas, and making sure these corridors are resilient moving forward. So as we do think about projects moving forward, we're looking for things that both address storm damage and create conditions for long-term economic vitality. To be eligible, projects have to meet specific federal requirements, primarily tying back to storm impacts and meeting a national objective. Beyond that, we are also grounding our project development in existing plans and community input, such as the Swananoa Small Area Plan and pedestrian planning efforts that are already underway. This will help ensure that we're not just reacting to the storm, but advancing projects the community already sees as a priority. The timeline is moving fairly quickly. The application is already open, and we have roughly 2 to 3.5 months to develop and submit competitive proposals. This means we need to move from concepts to defined projects fairly quickly while also meeting public engagement requirements, which I will cover at the end. Now I'm going to walk through a few of the project concepts that we've already identified so far. These are all at pre-screening stage for the state, which helps us gauge eligibility prior to committing to a full application. First is the Commercial Corridor HMGP Property Activation Project, and this project focuses on properties acquired through the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. These properties often come with restrictions that limit traditional development, but they still present opportunities. The idea here is to activate those spaces in a way that support economic and community value, things like greenways, passive recreation, or even agricultural uses. Next is the Swannanoa Commercial Corridor Revitalization Project. This is more infrastructure focused. It centers on improving pedestrian access along Highway 70 in Swannanoa by adding sidewalks from the Warren Wilson Road intersection to Whitson Avenue. This is about more than just walkability, though. It's about connecting people to businesses, improving safety, and making the corridor more attractive for both residents and visitors. It also aligns with a broader placemaking goal and helps reduce the risk of long-term commercial decline in the area. Next is the Commercial Corridor Remediation and Revitalization Project. This concept addresses a more immediate and visible issue: storm-damaged properties that haven't yet been remediated. In some cases, there are limited resources for code enforcement or cleanup, which can leave corridors looking blighted and discourage investment. This project would focus on remediation, debris removal, and addressing unsafe structures. The goal is to stabilize these areas and create a foundation for future redevelopment. We're also exploring additional concepts like stream bank stabilization in the Swannanoa corridor. This type of project ties directly into mitigation, reducing future flood risk while also protecting adjacent commercial areas. It's a good example of how recovery and resilience can be integrated into a single investment. That said, I do want to emphasize that this and the other projects that we've already discussed are still in the conceptual stage. Staff are continuing to evaluate additional ideas, potential project pathways, and remaining unmet needs across impacted areas. So what you're seeing today is not a finalized list, but rather a working set of options that we expect to refine as we move through the planning process, gather public input, and align with future and program requirements. So at this point, we're just going to look for any feedback or direction for priorities and input that can help shape what ultimately moves forward into the full applications. For your reference, this is a matrix that summarizes the range of concepts we've already discussed, and as we refine these, the focus will be on developing projects that both are competitive at the state level and show a great impact locally. So we're looking for clear tieback to the storm, meets a federal requirement or national objective, and demonstrates a strong community benefit. So if you have any comments or questions so far.
Thanks, Tyler. I appreciate that you all are looking at this in terms of projects that we were already working on and not trying to start something new, but rather trying to strengthen the work already underway. Commissioners, do you have questions?
I'll just say, from what I'm hearing from the community, I think these three tie in very much with what I'm hearing in the community, so I appreciate that. I think those are all very positive, and you said rounds, so I'm hoping there's additional rounds, so maybe we can get more than just one of those. And then on the other one, your other idea, the Swannanoa River, would that one tie into the infrastructure bucket that's coming as well, if it doesn't work within this bucket?
Depends on how the project is designed and scope, but based on the scope, we could apply for either the CDR bucket, which is what we're focused on here, or the future infrastructure.
Okay, thank you.
So Commissioner, we'll rather apply for what's open now, if we can try to scope it that way. And if we don't get that, we'll apply for when that's one opens, so.
I understand.
There you go.
Appreciate that. It's good to have a couple bites at the apple.
Absolutely. I would say, kudos to county staff and commissioners for the strong focus and Swan and NOAA, but especially given what we heard earlier with COC, I think we really should be thinking strategically about how we're supporting Barnardsville in their recovery. And so maybe keeping an eye towards applications that can specifically benefit them. It may be a bit outside the scope, but specifically with home repair and housing construction.
Exactly right. This one was around more commercial district but absolutely Barnardsville is on our mind. Not just because of what we heard today, but when we see the devastation in Barnardsville, it rivals any other place in our county, so yes.
And I will also add to that the remediation revitalization project is looking at countywide, although Swannanoa is used as an example for that because there is a lot of need in that area. Barnardsville is also a key area that we're looking at for that project specifically.
Perfect, yeah. There is a bit of a business corridor there for sure.
All right.
All right, so, sorry, just one last thing to wrap it up is next step. So looking ahead, our immediate focus is going to be on development of these applications over time, as well as implementing the citizen participation plan. And so a key requirement of the process is public engagement. So we'll hold 2 public hearings, one in May and one in July, and those are both tentative dates as the schedule will allow, but we will need to complete those by the 21st. Prior to the deadline. And we will also be holding a public comment period in between. And that is it.
All right.
Commissioners, if you
Thank
think
you,
of
Tyler.
anything we're missing, let us know. Otherwise, as Tara mentioned, we'll be building out the ones that we shared today.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Great work. Thanks, Tyler. Appreciate it. All right, commissioners, is there any open discussion before we adjourn and head upstairs? All right, if not, do I have a motion to adjourn? It was a tie. All right. All in favor? We are adjourned, and we will see everyone upstairs in commission.